My mother-in-law ruined my entire honeymoon, and I can't thank her enough for it. The months leading up to the wedding were exhausting. Noah and I had yielded on the venue, the catering, and even the bridal party size just to appease his overbearing mother, Nicole. All we had left was our 2-week escape to the Amalfi Coast, or so I thought. 3 days before we were supposed to walk down the aisle, I was lying in bed when my laptop pinged at 11:14 p.m. It was an automated receipt from our boutique Italian travel agency. The subject line read, "Confirmation, party of 3 upgrade for private catamaran tour." I opened the attachment, my blood running cold. Nicole hadn't just booked the same hotel. She had systematically called our agent, pretended to be me, and added herself to every single private excursion we had scheduled. The next evening at our rehearsal dinner in downtown Chicago, Nicole clinked her glass and stood up. She beamed at the 70 guests and pulled out a velvet box. "To the happy couple," she announced loudly, "and to the memories we'll make next week. I've bought us matching monogrammed luggage tags for our Italian adventure." Noah's cousin snickered into his napkin, clearly in on the joke. Noah just stared at his plate, paralyzed. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked the door, and immediately called my dad, who happens to be a corporate travel fixer. Within 45 minutes, I had entirely torpedoed our Amalfi Coast itinerary. I transferred our non-refundable deposits to a secluded, 5-star alpine chalet in Zermatt, Switzerland. It cost me an extra $4,200 from my personal savings account, but picturing Nicole wandering around southern Italy looking for us was worth every single penny. I swore my dad to absolute secrecy. "Are we really doing this?" Noah whispered on Sunday morning as our Uber pulled up to O'Hare Terminal 5. We were checking into our Swiss air flight, while Nicole was presumably boarding her Alitalia connection 2 terminals away. "We absolutely are," I replied, tossing my SIM card into the trash. It was the first time Noah didn't flinch at the thought of defying his mother. He actually smiled. By Tuesday, we were drinking mulled wine in a heated outdoor jacuzzi overlooking the Matterhorn. Meanwhile, chaos was unfolding 500 miles south. Nicole had landed in Naples with 4 massive suitcases and a custom itinerary, only to realize we were utterly untraceable. The hotel manager informed her that Mr. and Mrs. Hayes had never arrived. She spent the next 48 hours terrorizing the concierge, calling Noah's old college buddies, and sending increasingly hysterical voice notes to my sister. On Thursday, she attempted to go on the luxury catamaran tour alone, but without Noah there to pay the remaining €800 balance, the captain left her standing on the docks. The real kicker came on our final weekend. Because Nicole had hijacked our booking without actually double-checking her own documentation, she didn't realize her passport was 3 weeks away from expiring. Italian authorities flagged her at the Naples airport when she tried to fly back, temporarily detaining her due to a strict transit regulation. Noah finally turned his iPad on to check his work email, only to find 20 frantic messages from the US consulate. She was demanding we immediately wire her €2,500 for emergency travel documents and an expedited flight. Noah didn't panic. He didn't rush to fix it. He didn't even apologize for her situation. He simply forwarded the consulate's email to his dad, replied, "We're in the Alps, handle your ex-wife," and closed the iPad. The silence that followed was the most expensive, luxurious thing I've ever tasted. For 3 years of our relationship, Nicole had been the background noise of our lives, a constant hum of advice that sounded like commands and favors that were actually traps. Watching Noah set that iPad down was like watching a man put down a lead backpack he'd been carrying for a decade. He looked lighter. He looked like the man I actually married, not the son she had spent 30 years curating. We spent the rest of that afternoon wandering through Zermatt, buying overpriced chocolate and leather-bound journals we knew we'd never write in. It felt like we were finally breathing. But the thing about people like Nicole is that they don't just accept silence as an answer. They interpret it as a challenge. When we landed back at O'Hare, I expected a scene. I expected her to be standing at international arrivals with a lawyer or a priest or a megaphone. Instead, my phone, which I'd finally turned back on after getting a new SIM, stayed eerily quiet for the first hour. No texts, no missed calls, just a single notification from our home security app. Motion detected, front door, 2:14 p.m. Motion detected, front door, 2:18 p.m. Motion detected, living room, 2:22 p.m. My heart did a slow, painful roll in my chest. Nicole didn't have a key. She had never been given one because I'd made that a hill to die on during the engagement. But then I remembered the emergency set we'd left with Noah's sister, Maya. Maya, who was 22 and could be guilt-tripped into giving up her firstborn if Nicole used the right tone of voice. "Noah," I said, sliding the phone across the backseat of the Uber. "She's inside the house." Noah looked at the screen. The color drained from his face, replaced by a hard, flat anger I hadn't seen before. He didn't say a word. He just leaned forward and told the driver, "Change of plans. We need to get to Lincoln Park as fast as humanly possible. I'll double the tip." We didn't even unload the luggage when we arrived. We left the suitcases on the sidewalk and walked up the steps. The front door was unlocked. Not just unlocked, the deadbolt had been turned back. The house smelled like heavy floral perfume and something metallic. We walked into the kitchen to find Nicole sitting at our island. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't crying. She was calmly going through a stack of our mail with a letter opener she'd found in my desk. On the counter next to her sat her 4 massive suitcases, still tagged with the Naples airport stickers. She looked exhausted, her hair a mess, but her eyes were sharp. "The locks are going to be changed by 5 o'clock, Noah said. "No hello. No how are you." Just that. Nicole didn't even look up from a bank statement she was reading. "I had to wait 3 hours at the consulate in Rome, Noah. I was humiliated. I was treated like a common criminal because your little stunt left me without a support system in a foreign country. My blood pressure hit 160. I could have had a stroke. You shouldn't have been there," I said, stepping forward. "You stole our itinerary, Nicole. You tried to crash a honeymoon. That's the behavior of a stalker, not a mother." She finally looked at me, and the mask slipped. It wasn't sadness. It was pure, unadulterated venom. I was making sure my son was taken care of, and it's a good thing I came back early. "Do you know what I found in the guest room closet while I was looking for a place to put my things?" She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a small manila envelope. It was thick, stuffed with papers. My stomach dropped. That envelope didn't belong to me, and it didn't belong to Noah. It was something my father had given me the day before the wedding, legal documents regarding the restructuring of my family's estate that I hadn't even had time to read yet. "I see your father has been very busy," Nicole whispered, sliding a document across the marble. "Did no one know you were planning to to move your entire inheritance into a shielded trust before the ink on the marriage certificate was even dry? Or were you waiting until after the bliss wore off to tell him he's officially excluded from your family's future? I looked at Noah. He was looking at the paper. It was a standard premarital asset protection document my dad had insisted on, but the way Nicole was framing it and the timing of it made it look like a betrayal. Noah, I haven't even opened that yet, I started, but Nicole cut me off. She doesn't trust you, Noah. She treats you like a project, just like her father treats his employees. I came to Italy to protect you from being a third wheel in your own life, and look what I found. I'm the only one who actually has your back. She wasn't just ruining the honeymoon anymore. She was trying to dismantle the marriage before we'd even put the wedding gifts away. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Noah picked up the paper, his eyes scanning the legalese, and for a second, I thought the trip to Zermatt hadn't been a victory at all. I thought it might have been the last few days of peace I'd ever have with him. He turned to the second page. The kitchen was dead silent, save for the rhythmic clicking of the wall clock above the fridge and the sharp, deliberate sound of Noah flipping the thick, watermarked paper. I stood frozen by the entryway, my hands still gripping the handle of my carry-on. Nicole didn't move either. She just sat there on our bar stool, sipping a glass of our filtered water, watching her son's face with a look of eager anticipation. She was waiting for the explosion. She was waiting for the moment Noah realized I was the villain, not her. Noah finished reading the second page. He didn't turn to the third. He slowly placed the document back down on the cold marble of the island. He didn't look at me. He looked at his mother. "Where did you find this exactly?" he asked. His voice was completely flat. There was no inflection, no anger, just a hollow kind of curiosity. "I told you," Nicole said, her tone softening into that practiced, syrupy register she used whenever she wanted to play the victim. "I was in the guest room. I was looking for somewhere to unpack my things, since I clearly wasn't welcome on my own vacation. The envelope was just sitting there, practically open. It was in a closed box, at the back of the top shelf in the closet," I said. My voice shook, but not from fear. The sheer audacity of her sitting in my house, drinking my water, while trying to detonate my marriage was making my skin hot. My dad handed it to me in the valet line right after the rehearsal dinner. I shoved it in a shipping box we hadn't unpacked yet because I didn't want to deal with it until after the honeymoon. Nicole rolled her eyes, a heavy, dramatic gesture. "Oh, please. You didn't want to deal with it because you knew exactly what it was. You've been planning to lock Noah out of your family's money since day one. You treat him like a charity case." "Mom," Noah said. The single word cut through the air like a whip. It was sharp enough that Nicole actually flinched. Noah finally looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed from the flight, but they were scanning my face, looking for something. "Did you know what was in here?" he asked quietly. "I knew it was an asset protection draft," I told him, looking him dead in the eye. I wasn't going to lie. I wasn't going to play Nicole's game. My dad mentioned it when we got engaged. He said it was standard for the company structure. I told him I didn't care and didn't want to look at it. "I haven't signed a single thing, Noah. I haven't even read it." Noah held my gaze for 3 long seconds. I felt every single beat of my heart in my throat. If he didn't believe me right now, the marriage was effectively over. Nicole had won. She had successfully planted the seed of doubt that would grow into a resentful, suffocating weed, choking out whatever we had built. Then, Noah blinked. He reached out, picked up the thick stack of papers, and without looking away from me, ripped them perfectly in half. Nicole let out a sharp gasp, practically jumping off the bar stool. "Noah, what are you doing? Those are legal." He placed the torn halves on top of each other and ripped them again, the thick paper groaning under the force of his hands. He tossed the shredded pieces into the trash can next to the island. "I don't care about her dad's money," Noah said, finally turning to face his mother. The flat calmness was gone, replaced by a deep, vibrating anger that seemed to radiate off him. "I care that my wife and I just walked into our home to find you going through our mail. I care that you used Maya's emergency key to trespass." "Trespass?" Nicole's voice cracked. Her face flushed a deep, ugly red. "I am your mother. I flew halfway across the world for you. I was humiliated by Italian customs because of your little prank. I had to sit in a holding room for 6 hours, Noah. 6 hours. Do you have any idea what that did to my nerves?" "You weren't there for me," Noah said, stepping closer to her. "You were there for you. You hijacked our honeymoon because you cannot stand the fact that I have a life that doesn't revolve around managing your emotions. You lied to our travel agent. You committed fraud to get on those excursions." "I was upgrading them!" she shrieked, slamming her hand on the counter. The glass of water wobbled. "I paid for the catamaran. I paid for the extra hotel suite. And who paid for your emergency flight back?" Noah asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Because I know your credit cards were maxed out. You complained about it for a month before the wedding. Who paid the 2,500 euros to get you out of Naples, Mom?" Nicole's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked away, her eyes darting toward her 4 massive suitcases sitting by the fridge. "Did you take money from Maya?" Noah demanded. She offered. Nicole muttered defensively, refusing to make eye contact. "Your sister understands that family takes care of family, unlike some people." She shot a venomous glare in my direction. Noah closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. He took a deep, shuddering breath. When he opened his eyes again, the exhaustion on his face was absolute. It was the look of a man who realized the backpack he thought he'd put down in Switzerland had actually been strapped to his chest the whole time. "Pack whatever you unpacked," Noah said. "You have 5 minutes." "Excuse me?" Nicole bristled, standing up straight. "I just got off a 14-hour travel day. My condo is currently sublet for the month because I thought I was going to be in Europe with my son. I am exhausted, my blood pressure is through the roof, and I am not going anywhere." "You are not sleeping in this house," Noah said. "Not tonight. Not ever again. You are throwing your own mother out onto the street?" She crossed her arms, anchoring her feet to the floor. "I'd like to see you try. What are you going to do, Noah? Call the police? Have them drag me out in front of the neighbors?" The threat hung in the air, ugly and heavy. She was calling his bluff. She knew Noah hated scenes. She knew he hated public embarrassment more than anything else in the world. For his entire life, she had used his desire for peace as a weapon against him. If she just dug her heels in hard enough, if she made it uncomfortable enough, he would eventually fold. He always folded. I watched Noah's hands curl into fists at his sides. He looked at the suitcases. He looked at the torn paper in the trash can. Then, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He didn't dial the police. He opened his banking app. "I am transferring $500 to your checking account," Noah said, his thumbs moving quickly over the screen. "That is enough for 3 nights at the Courtyard Marriott by the highway, plus meals. You have exactly 3 minutes to get your bags out of my kitchen, or I am carrying them to the curb myself and locking the door behind you. Whether you are outside with them or still standing in here is up to you. And Nicole stared at him, genuinely shocked. The bluff had been called, but not in the way she expected. He wasn't making a scene. He was just quietly, methodically removing her safety net. You're choosing her, Nicole whispered, her voice trembling. Real tears finally sprang to her eyes, thick and fast. Over your own mother. After everything I sacrificed for you. I chose her when I put the ring on her finger, Noah said, not looking up from his phone. Transaction complete. 2 minutes left. Mom. For a second, I thought she was going to scream. Her chest heaved and her hands shook as she grabbed her designer handbag off the stool. But the cold, unmovable wall Noah had put up finally broke her. She grabbed the handles of 2 of her massive suitcases and yanked them toward the hallway. They clattered loudly against the hardwood floors. You're going to regret this, Noah, she spat, struggling to pull the heavy bags over the threshold of the front door. When she's done with you. When her family decides you're not good enough for their little empire, don't come crying to me. ASCII. Noah walked over, grabbed the remaining 2 suitcases, and carried them out to the front porch. He set them down next to her without a word. Nicole glared at him, her mascara running down her cheeks, looking small and pathetic under the harsh glow of our porch light. Noah stepped back inside and shut the door. He turned the deadbolt with a loud, definitive click. We stood in the hallway, the silence of the house pressing in on us. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like we had just survived a car crash and were standing on the side of the road, staring at the wreckage. Noah slowly walked back into the kitchen. He leaned against the island, bracing both hands on the marble, and let his head drop between his shoulders. He breathed in, a ragged, uneven sound. I walked over and put my hand on his back. His shirt was damp with sweat. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean into my touch either. He just stood there, staring at the trash can where the torn pieces of the trust document lay. Noah, I said softly. I need you to tell me the truth, he said, his voice completely hollow. He didn't lift his head. I did tell you the truth, I said. I didn't read it. I didn't ask for it. My dad. I know, he interrupted, finally pushing himself up and looking at me. The anger was gone, replaced by a quiet, deep hurt that was so much worse to look at. I know you didn't read it, but I did. My stomach dropped. Noah, it's just lawyer talk. It doesn't mean anything. Page 4, section 3, Noah recited, his eyes locking onto mine. In the event of dissolution of marriage, the spouse, Noah Hayes, waives all rights to the primary residence, regardless of mortgage contributions made from joint accounts. He paused, letting the words hang in the heavy air. Did you know your dad bought this house through an LLC? I froze. The house. My dad had helped us with the down payment as a wedding gift. It had been a massive relief at the time, allowing us to keep our savings intact. He had handled the paperwork through his firm's real estate broker to save us the headache. He put it in my name, I said, my voice faltering. He told me he put the deed in my name. He put it in a subsidiary trust, Noah said quietly, controlled by your family's estate. I'm not on the deed. And according to that document my mother just found, if we ever get divorced, I don't see a dime of the equity I've been paying into for the last 6 months. I felt the blood drain from my face. My dad had lied to me. Or, at the very least, he had deliberately obscured the truth under a mountain of corporate legalese, knowing I wouldn't double-check his work. He had protected his investment, and in doing so, he had completely undermined my husband. Noah, I swear to God, I had no idea, I pleaded, stepping closer to him. I will call him right now. We'll fix it. We'll put your name on it. Noah shook his head slowly, taking a half step back. The movement was small, but it felt like a canyon opening up between us. It's not about the house, he said, his voice cracking slightly. It's about the fact that your dad looked me in the eye at the rehearsal dinner, shook my hand, welcomed me to the family, and then handed you an envelope that effectively treated me like a hostile takeover. He let out a dry, humorless laugh. My mother tries to sabotage us because she's crazy. Your dad tries to sabotage us because he thinks I'm a liability. Before I could answer, before I could even try to defend myself against a betrayal I hadn't committed, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text from Maya. She's at my apartment. She's hysterical. I can't believe you guys did this to her. Also, the bank just flagged my checking account because she tried to pull another $1,000 out to pay for the Marriott. Noah, you need to call me right now. Dad is furious. I stared at the screen, the words blurring together. Nicole hadn't gone to the hotel. She had gone straight to Maya's, and she had already managed to drag Noah's father into it. The man who had laughed at the consulate email was now apparently turning on us. I looked up at Noah. He was still watching me, the ghost of a defeated smile on his face. What does it say? He asked. I handed him the phone. He read the message, his jaw tightening. He didn't hand the phone back. He just set it down on the counter next to the empty space where the legal document had been. I need to take a shower, he said softly. I just need to wash the airports off me. He walked out of the kitchen, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. I stood alone in the center of the room, listening to the water turn on overhead. The house was finally quiet, but it didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt exactly like what my father had made it, an asset. And Nicole, despite being locked out in the cold, had managed to do exactly what she came to do. She had found the crack in the foundation, and she had taken a sledgehammer to it. I didn't wait for him to come back downstairs. I pulled up my dad's contact in my phone and hit call. It rang 3 times before he picked up, the background noise of a busy restaurant bleeding through the speaker. Hey kiddo, my dad said, sounding entirely too cheerful for the reality I was currently standing in. You're back early. Thought you weren't landing until, is the house in an LLC? I cut him off. I didn't yell, but my voice was shaking so hard I had to brace my free hand flat against the kitchen counter. Did you put the deed to our home in a subsidiary trust? The background noise on his end suddenly got quieter, like he was stepping out onto a patio or into a hallway. The silence that stretched between us was all the answer I needed, but I needed him to say it. Who showed you the draft? He asked. His tone had instantly shifted from father of the bride to boardroom negotiator. Cold, pragmatic. It wasn't a draft, Dad. It was in the envelope you gave me. The one Nicole just broke into our house and found. Nicole was in your house? He sighed, a heavy, irritated sound. Christ, that woman is a menace. Have you called the police? Stop trying to change the subject. I gripped the edge of the marble island. You told me the down payment was a wedding gift. You told me the paperwork was just a formality. Noah has been paying half the mortgage out of his salary for 6 months, and his name isn't even on the deed. If we divorce, he gets nothing? It's standard asset protection, my dad said, his voice maddeningly calm. You're my only daughter. You stand to inherit a significant portfolio. Noah is a great guy, but he comes from a chaotic background. Look at his mother. You think I'm going to let that woman anywhere near our family's capital if things go south? I insulated the property. It's for your own good. You lied to me. I managed risk, he corrected smoothly. You didn't want to read the paperwork, remember? You told me to handle it, so I handled it. If Noah has a problem with a safety net, that says more about his intentions than mine. I hung up. I couldn't listen to another word. He sounded exactly like Nicole. They were two sides of the exact same coin, manipulating us, lying to us, and wrapping it up in the suffocating excuse of protecting us. I walked over to the trash can, staring down at the torn pieces of the trust document. Noah was right. His mother sabotaged us with hysteria, and my father sabotaged us with paperwork. The water stopped running upstairs. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart, and walked up to our bedroom. The door to the ensuite bathroom was open. Steam was billowing out into the room. Noah was standing by the closet, a towel wrapped around his waist, pulling a duffel bag off the top shelf. What are you doing? I asked. My voice sounded small, pathetic even to my own ears. I'm packing a bag, he said. He didn't look at me. He just started pulling t-shirts and underwear out of his dresser drawers and tossing them into the canvas bag. Noah, please, don't leave. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about right now, he said, zipping his toiletry bag and throwing it on top of his clothes. Your dad lied. You didn't know, and I believe you. I really do. But I cannot sleep in this house tonight. I can't look at these walls and know that your father owns them, and that he engineered it so I'd be out on the street if we ever hit a rough patch. I'll transfer it, I said desperately. I'll call a lawyer tomorrow, first thing in the morning. We'll get it out of the LLC, we'll put your name on it, whatever it takes. I don't care about his money. Noah finally stopped packing. He leaned his hands on the dresser, hanging his head. It's not that simple. If you try to pull it out of the trust, your dad is going to fight you. He'll threaten to cut you off. He'll make it a war. And honestly, I don't have the energy for a war right now. I just spent 2 weeks dodging my mother across an ocean, and I came home to find out I have to dodge your father in my own living room. He pulled on a pair of jeans and a plain gray t-shirt. He looked exhausted. The brief, triumphant spark I'd seen in his eyes when we were in Switzerland was completely extinguished. Where are you going to go? I asked, tears finally spilling hot down my cheeks. Please don't go to Maya's. Nicole is there. It'll just be a feeding frenzy. I'm not going to Maya's, he said. He picked up his phone from the nightstand. I'm going to grab a hotel room downtown, just for a night or two. I need to think. I need to figure out what the hell we're actually building here, because right now, it feels like we're just squatting in our parents' crossfire. He slung the duffel bag over his shoulder. I wanted to block the door. I wanted to beg him to stay, but I knew if I pushed him right now, I'd just be doing exactly what our parents did, ignoring his boundaries to make myself feel better. So I stepped aside. I followed him down the stairs. He stopped by the front door, slipping his shoes on. He looked around the entryway, his eyes lingering on the framed wedding photo we'd hung just 3 weeks ago. We looked so happy. We looked like we thought we were untouchable. I love you, he said quietly, his hand on the doorknob. I'm not walking out on the marriage. I'm just walking out of this building. I'll call you tomorrow. I love you too, I whispered. The door clicked shut, the deadbolt engaged. I was alone in a house I supposedly owned, feeling like an absolute stranger. I walked back into the kitchen and sat down on the bar stool Nicole had vacated less than an hour ago. The silence in the house was deafening. I looked at my phone, still sitting on the counter. Maya's text was still on the screen. Dad is furious. I unlocked the screen and called Maya. She answered on the first ring. Is Noah with you? She demanded immediately. She sounded frantic, her voice tight with stress. In the background, I could hear someone crying loudly. It was the unmistakable theatrical sobbing of my mother-in-law. No, I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible. Noah went to a hotel. I'm at the house alone. A hotel? Maya repeated, sounding genuinely bewildered. Why? Wait, did you guys kick Mom out? She broke into our house, Maya. She used your emergency key, which you weren't supposed to give her, and she broke in. She told me you left the door unlocked for her so she could drop off wedding gifts. Maya cried defensively. She said she was just bringing the mail in, and then Noah started screaming at her and threw her luggage into the street. I rubbed my temples, feeling a massive headache blooming behind my eyes. Maya, she's lying. She stole our itinerary, went to Italy, got stranded, came back, let herself into our home, and went through our private financial documents. Noah told her to leave. Well, she's here now, and she's a wreck, and Dad is on his way over. That made me pause. Noah's parents had been divorced for 15 years. They despised each other. His dad, Richard, lived in the suburbs and actively avoided Nicole at all costs. The fact that he was driving into the city on a Friday night meant something had gone very, very wrong. Why is Richard coming over? I asked. Maya hesitated. The crying in the background hitched, then grew louder. Because of the credit card. What credit card? The joint one, Maya said, her voice dropping to a whisper. The one Dad co-signed with Noah back in college so he could build his credit score. I guess it was still open. Mom, she used it to buy her flight back from Naples today. First class. She said it was an emergency. My stomach plummeted. How much, Maya? $12,000, Maya whispered. It flagged Dad's fraud alert. He called Noah, but Noah's phone went straight to voicemail, so he called Mom. She told him Noah authorized it to make up for abandoning her in Europe. I stared at the marble countertop. $12,000. On a card tied to Noah's dad, who was notoriously strict with his money and already harbored a deep resentment toward Nicole. She didn't just ruin the honeymoon, I said numbly. She's trying to ruin everything. Dad's pulling up, Maya said, panic rising in her voice. I have to go. Please tell Noah to call me. This is going to be a bloodbath. She hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the blank screen of my phone. Noah was at a hotel, trying to escape the mess my father had made. Meanwhile, his mother was across town, actively detonating a financial bomb that was going to drag his father into the war zone. And I was stuck in the middle, sitting in an LLC, realizing that the real marriage hadn't started when we said I do. It was starting right now, and we were already losing. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I stared at it, my heart hammering against my ribs. I let it ring 3 times before I finally hit accept and lifted it to my ear. Hello? Mrs. Hayes, a crisp, professional female voice said. My name is Sarah. I'm calling from the fraud division at Chase Bank. Am I speaking with the primary account holder? Yes, this is her. I'm calling regarding a suspicious transfer initiated 10 minutes ago from your joint checking account. A wire transfer of $18,000 was scheduled to an external account under the name Nicole Hayes. Can you confirm if you authorized this transaction? No, I said, my voice dropping to a harsh, panicked whisper. No, I absolutely did not authorize that. Cancel it. Do not let that transfer go through. I am canceling the wire request now, Mrs. Hayes, Sarah said, her tone remaining steady and practiced. I will also be placing a hard freeze on the joint checking and associated savings accounts to to prevent any further unauthorized withdrawals. You and Mr. Hayes will need to visit a physical branch with 2 forms of identification to lift the hold and establish new account numbers. I closed my eyes, pressing the heel of my hand against my forehead. How did she even initiate it? She doesn't have our passwords. The request was made via our automated telephone banking system, followed by a representative override, Sarah explained. The caller verified Mr. Hayes' social security number, his date of birth, his childhood street address, and his mother's maiden name. A bitter, hysterical laugh clawed its way up my throat. Of course she did. She was his mother. She knew all the answers to his security questions because she was the answer to half of them. She had his bank statements, I said, remembering the stack of mail she'd been casually reading with my letter opener when we walked in. She had our routing numbers from the mail. As a precaution, I strongly advise you to check for any missing checks, debit cards, or other sensitive documents, Sarah said. The freeze is active as of right now. Any scheduled auto pays, including mortgages or utilities, will be declined until you resolve this in a branch. Understood. Thank you. I hung up and immediately dialed Noah's number. It rang once and went straight to voicemail. He had either turned his phone off or blocked my number for the night. I texted him instead. Urgent. Your mom just tried to wire $18,000 out of our joint account using your SSN over the phone. Chase caught it and froze everything. We have zero access to our money until we go to a branch together. Call me the second you see this. I threw the phone onto the island and practically ran back into the guest room. The bed was unmade where she had apparently taken a nap, and the closet doors were wide open. I dropped to my knees and pulled out the shipping box where I'd stashed the envelope from my dad. The envelope was gone, obviously, but beneath it was a small, fireproof lockbox we used for important documents. We hadn't bolted it down yet because we'd only moved in 2 months ago. The key was usually kept in the top drawer of Noah's nightstand. I sprinted to our master bedroom, yanked open Noah's nightstand drawer, and dug through the charging cables and spare change. The key was missing. I ran back to the guest room and tugged on the lid of the lockbox. It popped open effortlessly. Inside, my passport was still there, Noah's passport was still there, but the 2 spare checkbooks for our joint account were gone. And, making my stomach turn entirely inside out, so was the folder containing Noah's birth certificate and his physical social security card. She hadn't just been looking for a place to put her things. She had systematically ransacked the house while we were flying over the Atlantic. She took his documents. She took his identity. It was a terrifyingly calculated move. If she could drain his money and hold his documents hostage, he wouldn't be able to travel. He wouldn't be able to rent an apartment. He wouldn't be able to escape her. She was literally trying to clip his wings so he'd have no choice but to crawl back into her nest. My phone started ringing from the kitchen. I dashed back out, hoping it was Noah. It was Richard, Noah's dad. I answered it on the first ring. Richard, please tell me you've talked to him. Is my son there? Richard's voice was a low, terrifying rumble. I had only met the man a handful of times. He lived in a cabin up in Wisconsin and preferred fishing to socializing, but he had always been polite, if a bit gruff. Right now, he sounded like he was ready to commit murder. He's not here, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. He left about 20 minutes ago. He went to a hotel downtown because of, well, everything. You mean because his psychotic mother broke into your house and then maxed out a line of credit I opened for him when he was a sophomore in college? Richard snapped. She charged $12,000 to an American Express card that hasn't seen the light of day in 6 years. I got the alert while I was eating dinner. I called Nicole, and do you know what she told me? That Noah told her to do it, I said tiredly. Maya told me. She told me Noah was too ashamed to admit he ruined her vacation, so he gave her the card number as an apology. I knew it was garbage the second it left her mouth, but the credit card company doesn't care. As far as they're concerned, it's a family dispute, not fraud, because she's his mother and she had the physical digits. Richard, it gets worse, I said, leaning heavily against the refrigerator. She just tried to wire $18,000 out of our joint Chase account. They caught it and froze the account, but I just checked our lockbox. She stole his birth certificate, his social security card, and our spare checkbooks. Dead silence on the other end of the line, the kind of silence that feels heavy and dangerous. She took his papers, Richard finally said, his voice dropping an octave. Yes, that woman, Richard breathed, the anger shifting into something colder and much more absolute. She pulled this exact same stunt during our divorce. She emptied the accounts, hid the passports, and told everyone I was having a mental breakdown and couldn't be trusted with my own assets. She's trying to isolate him. She thinks if she strips him of his money and his identity, she can force him to live with her. He won't do that, I said, though the conviction in my voice wavered slightly. Noah had just walked out of our house because he felt completely financially exposed by my father. Now his mother had stripped him of his actual money. He was sitting in a hotel room right now with a duffel bag, a deactivated debit card, and nothing else. You don't understand how she operates, Richard said grimly. She creates a crisis, waits for the target to panic, and then swoops in playing the savior. She's going to wait until his cards get declined at that hotel, and then she's going to show up to rescue him. Do you know which hotel he went to? No, he just said downtown. Find out. Call every Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt in the loop if you have to. If he uses his own credit card, she might have the login for that too. If she sees the pending charge, she'll know exactly where he is. I'll start calling, I promised. I'm 10 minutes away from Maya's apartment, Richard said. I'm going to get my son's documents back, and I'm going to make sure that woman understands what happens when she steals from me. You find Noah. Call me when you have him. Add. He hung up. I pulled up my laptop and opened Google Maps, centering it on downtown Chicago. I typed in hotels and stared at the hundreds of little red pins dotting the grid. Finding him manually was going to take hours. I picked up my phone and opened our Find My Friends app. Noah and I had shared our location since our second year of dating. It was mostly for convenience, knowing when the other was leaving work or stuck in traffic. I tapped his icon. Location. Not available. He had turned it off. My chest tightened. He hadn't just wanted a night away to think. He wanted to be completely off the grid. He was hiding from his mother, from my father, from all the toxic strings pulling at him. And by turning off his location, he was hiding from me too. I sat at the kitchen island, staring at the empty space where the trust document had been, and felt a profound, suffocating sense of failure. We had been married for exactly 3 weeks. The honeymoon was over, and we were already completely shattered. I opened my text thread with him again. I needed him to know I was on his side. I know you're angry, and I know you need space, I typed, but your mom took your birth certificate and SSN card from the lockbox. She tried to steal $18K. Your dad is on his way to Maya's to confront her about the Amex. Please just tell me you're safe. I won't won't come to you if you don't want me to. Just let me know you're okay. I hit send. It delivered as a blue iMessage. He had Wi-Fi, at least. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I was just about to start dialing hotels alphabetically when my phone buzzed with an incoming call. It wasn't Noah. It was my sister, Chloe. Chloe was a corporate litigator who worked 2 floors down from our dad's executive suite. She was sharp, ruthless, and usually the smartest person in any room she walked into. We had a good relationship, mostly because we had established a mutual non-aggression pact regarding our dad's overbearing nature early in life. Tell me you didn't yell at Dad, were her first words when I answered. I did more than yell, I said, rubbing my tired eyes. I hung up on him. Did he call you to complain? No, he called me to draft an injunction, Chloe said, her voice entirely devoid of its usual sarcastic lilt. What the hell is going on over there? Dad called me 10 minutes ago demanding I pull the property records for your house and prepare a cease and desist letter for Nicole Hayes. He wants to sue Nicole? I asked, completely bewildered. For what? Trespassing? For blackmail? Chloe said. Dad said Nicole called him. I stopped breathing for a second. Nicole called Dad? How does she even have his number? She probably got it from the wedding guest list spreadsheet. I don't know, Chloe said impatiently. The point is, she called him from Maya's apartment. She told him she had physical possession of the unexecuted trust documents. She told him she knows the house is held in an LLC to deliberately defraud Noah of marital equity. It's not defrauding him, it's just shady asset protection, I stammered, trying to make sense of the legal web snapping shut around us. To a judge in a messy divorce, it looks exactly like fraud, especially since Dad facilitated the down payment using joint marital funds, Chloe corrected sharply. But that's not the worst part. Nicole told Dad that unless he liquidates the LLC and signs the deed over to Noah solely to Noah, she is going to take the documents to the Chicago Tribune and tell them that our father's firm uses dummy corporations to hide assets and evade property taxes. I literally had to sit down. My knees completely gave out. I hit the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets. She's trying to extort him, I whispered. She's a lunatic, Chloe agreed. Dad's tax structures are perfectly legal, but the optics are terrible. If a story runs saying a major Chicago developer is hiding residential property in shell companies to screw over his own son-in-law, it tanks the firm's public image right before the city council votes on the waterfront zoning permits next month. Dad is furious. He's talking about hiring private security to go to Maya's apartment and retrieve the documents by force. No, Chloe, you have to stop him, I pleaded, panic rising in my chest like bile. Richard is on his way to Maya's right now. If Dad sends security guys while Noah's dad is there, it's going to be a disaster. Someone is going to get arrested. I told Dad to hold off for 24 hours, Chloe said. I told him I'd handle it. Where is Noah? Why isn't he controlling his mother? Noah left, I admitted, my voice cracking. He's at a hotel. His mom maxed out a $12K credit card in his name, tried to steal $18K from our joint account, and stole his birth certificate. He has no money, no ID, and he turned his location off. He's completely tapped out. Chloe went silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her tone had shifted. The lawyer was gone. My older sister was back. Pack a bag, she said quietly. What? Pack a bag. Call an Uber. Come to my place. Do not stay in that house tonight. I can't leave, I protested, looking around the pristine, empty kitchen. If Noah comes back, he'll find an empty house, which is exactly what he needs right now, Chloe interrupted. Listen to me. Nicole knows where you live. She has already broken in once. She is actively trying to extort a man who has enough money to ruin her life, and she has Richard bearing down on her. When the walls close in on her tonight, she is going to come looking for a punching bag, and you are the only one left in the ring. I looked at the front door. The deadbolt was locked, but the wood suddenly looked very thin. She wouldn't come back here, I said, though I didn't believe it. Noah told her if she came back, he'd call the police. Noah isn't there, Chloe pointed out logically, and she knows that. She has his bank logins, remember? If she checks the Chase app, she'll see the hold. She'll see the pending hotel charge on his credit card. She knows you're alone. A cold chill ran down my spine. I hadn't thought of that. If Nicole could see the banking details, she knew exactly where Noah was, and she knew exactly where I was. I'll pack, I said, pushing myself up off the floor. I'm ordering the Uber for you, Chloe said. It'll be there in 10 minutes. Just get your laptop, your passport, and some clothes. Leave the lights on. I hung up and sprinted upstairs. I grabbed a small duffel bag, the matching one to the one Noah had taken, and threw in leggings, sweaters, a toothbrush, and my laptop. I grabbed my passport from the lockbox and shoved it into the front pocket. As I was zipping the bag closed, my phone buzzed on the bed. It was a text from Noah. I'm at the Palmer house, room 412. Don't come here. I just needed you to know I'm safe. I exhaled a massive breath of relief. He wasn't completely shutting me out. He was just trying to survive the night. I'm going to Chloe's, I texted back. Your dad went to Maya's to deal with the Amex. My dad is threatening to sue your mom for extortion. Chloe told me not to be at the house. I love you. Please just sleep. I didn't wait for a reply. I grabbed my bag, ran downstairs, and threw on my coat. I checked the Uber app. Chloe's car was 3 minutes away. I stood in the entryway, looking around the house. It was a beautiful home. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, custom molding. It was the house I had pictured raising kids in. Now, it just felt like a trap set by my father and triggered by his mother. A car honked outside. I opened the front door, stepped out onto the porch, and locked the deadbolt behind me. I practically ran down the front steps to the waiting black SUV. I climbed into the back seat, pulled the door shut, and told the driver to go. As the car pulled away from the curb, I looked out the window at my house, and that's when I saw it. Parked halfway down the block, sitting in the shadows between two streetlights, was a familiar silver Lexus SUV, Nicole's car. She wasn't at Maya's apartment dealing with Richard. She had left Maya there to take the fall. She was sitting in her car, watching my house, watching me leave. I sank down lower in the leather seat of the Uber, my heart hammering against my ribs. She didn't follow us. She just stayed parked, staring at the empty house. I pulled out my phone and dialed Richard's number. He answered immediately, the sound of loud voices in the background. Maya was crying again. Did you find him? Richard asked, sharply. He's at the Palmer house, I said. But Richard, Nicole isn't there, is she? No, Richard growled. Maya says she left 20 minutes ago. Said she had an errand to run. She's sitting outside my house, I said, my voice trembling. I just left to go to my sister's. She was parked down the block, watching the front door. Are you safe? I'm in an Uber. I'm fine. But Richard, she has Noah's documents. She knows I'm gone. She knows Noah's not there. She's going back in, Richard realized. She doesn't have a key, I said. Noah took the emergency set from her. She doesn't need a key, Richard said grimly. If she spent the afternoon in your house, house, she unlatched a window. She unlocked the back gate. She did something. She always leaves herself a back door. Why would she go back in? I asked, completely terrified of the answer. She already took the checks and his ID. She already took the trust document. Because she wants to make sure there's nothing left for him to come back to, Richard said. I'm calling the police. I'll meet them at your house. He hung up before I could argue. I sat in the back of the Uber, watching the city lights blur past the window, realizing with sickening clarity that the battle for my marriage wasn't going to be fought in a therapist's office or over a dinner table. It was being fought right now, in the dark, over bank accounts and locked doors and stolen paperwork. And the scariest part wasn't what Nicole was willing to do to win. The scariest part was wondering if Noah even wanted to be won back at all. The Uber pulled up to Chloe's high-rise in the West Loop 20 minutes later. I tipped the driver an extra $20 just for getting me away from my own street and walked into the lobby feeling like I was vibrating out of my skin. Chloe buzzed me up immediately. When the elevator doors opened on the 34th floor, she was already standing in her doorway. She was wearing oversized cashmere sweatpants and a messy bun, but she still had that intense, predatory posture she used in depositions. Get in, she said, pulling me inside and locking the door behind me. Her apartment was everything mine wasn't right now: quiet, secure, and completely unattached to any of our father's holding companies. She had a massive glass of red wine waiting for me on the kitchen island. I dropped my bag, took the glass, and drank half of it in one gulp. Dad called again while you were in the car, Chloe said, leaning against the counter. I talked him down from the private security guys. I told him if he sends armed guards to a domestic dispute, the Tribune won't even need Nicole to give them a quote. They'll just pull the police scanner logs. He's backing off for the night, but he's having his fixers draw up a non-disclosure agreement for her to sign tomorrow. She won't sign an NDA, I said, my voice hoarse. She doesn't care about money, Chloe. She cares about control. She wants Noah to be completely dependent on her. Everyone cares about money when the alternative is a defamation lawsuit that bankrupts them, Chloe said flatly. But before she could elaborate on her legal strategy for destroying my mother-in-law, my phone rang. It was Richard. I put it on speaker and set it on the marble counter between me and Chloe. Are you at the house? I asked. I'm here, Richard said. The background noise was completely silent. No sirens, no yelling. The police just left. Did they arrest her? Richard let out a long, bitter exhale. No, because she wasn't here. She was already gone by the time I pulled up, and the police wouldn't have done a damn thing even if she was sitting in the living room. What do you mean? Chloe leaned in, her lawyer instincts flaring. She broke and entered. She stole financial documents. According to the Chicago Police Department, she entered a residence using a key provided by a family member, Richard said, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. She took documents belonging to her own son, and she claimed to the credit card company that she had authorization. The cops told me this is a civil matter, a domestic dispute. They took a report, but they said unless there's a physical assault or a broken window, they aren't getting involved. They told me to hire a family law attorney. I closed my eyes. Of course. Nicole knew exactly where the line was. She knew how to cause maximum emotional devastation without crossing into felony territory. She weaponized the gray area. Did she take anything else? I asked quietly. She didn't trash the place, if that's what you're asking, Richard said, but she took the wedding album off the coffee table. She took all the framed photos of you and Noah from the hallway, and she took the entire stack of mail, including the new utility bills. She's scrubbing you out of his life, and she's taking his proof of residency. A cold, heavy knot formed in my stomach. It wasn't a heist. It was an erasure. Where is she now? Chloe asked. I don't know, and I don't care, Richard said. I'm going to a branch tomorrow morning with my lawyer to dispute the Amex charge, and then I'm driving back to Wisconsin. I cannot be near that woman. She's toxic waste. You need to tell Noah to lock down his credit through the major bureaus tonight before she uses his social to open a new line. I will, I said softly. Thank you, Richard. He hung up. I stared at the phone, feeling the sheer exhaustion of the last 72 hours finally crashing down on my shoulders. I had spent my entire honeymoon fighting a ghost, and now I was sitting in my sister's apartment, locked out of my own bank accounts, while my husband sat in a hotel room completely alone. Drink your wine, Chloe ordered gently. You can't fix this tonight. Go take a shower. Sleep in the guest room. We'll deal with the LLC and Dad's mess tomorrow. I didn't sleep. I lay in Chloe's guest bed, staring at the ceiling, watching the headlights of passing cars sweep across the walls, replaying the look on Noah's face when he ripped that trust document in half. He had chosen me. He had literally thrown his mother out onto the street for me, and his reward was finding out my father had rigged the game behind his back. At 6:30 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, put on the same clothes I'd worn yesterday, and quietly let myself out of Chloe's apartment. The Palmer house was only a 10-minute cab ride away. The lobby was grand and historic, all gilded ceilings and heavy chandeliers, bustling with early morning business travelers drinking overpriced coffee. It felt like a different universe from the claustrophobic nightmare of my kitchen. I took the elevator to the 4th floor and walked down the long, carpeted hallway until I reached room 412. I stood there for a full minute just staring at the brass numbers. I didn't know if I should knock. I didn't know if he would even open the door. But I couldn't leave him alone with the silence anymore. I raised my hand and knocked softly, 3 times. Nothing happened. I waited 10 seconds and knocked again, a little louder. I heard the heavy deadbolt click, and the door swung inward a few inches, stopped by the security chain. Noah looked out at me through the crack. He looked awful. He was still wearing the gray t-shirt from yesterday. He hadn't shaved, and there were deep, bruised-looking bags under his eyes. He didn't say anything. He just closed the door, unlatched the chain, and opened it wide. I walked in. The room was standard hotel issue, heavy beige curtains pulled tight against the morning light, a king-sized bed that looked like it hadn't been slept in, and a small desk covered in open manila folders and a laptop. I told you not to come, he said. His voice was gravelly and exhausted. He walked over to the small armchair in the corner and sat down, leaning his elbows on his knees. I know, I said, staying near the door. I didn't want to crowd him, but I couldn't leave you here. Not after what Richard told me. Noah let out a dry, humorless laugh. You mean the part where the cops told him there's nothing they can do? Or the part where I currently have a fraud alert on my own name because my mother is trying to steal 18 grand out of my checking account? Noah, I am so sorry. Don't apologize for her, he said sharply, looking up at me. She's not your responsibility. I'm not apologizing for her. I'm apologizing for my dad. I took a step into the room. I talked to Chloe last night. She's going to help me force him to dissolve the LLC. We're going to put the house in both our names, free and clear. I don't care if he threatens to cut me off. I'll walk away from the whole estate if I have to. Noah stared at me for a long time. time. The anger wasn't there anymore, but what had replaced it was infinitely worse. It was resignation. It's not about the deed, he said quietly. He pointed to the laptop on the desk. Do you know what I've been doing since 4 o'clock this morning? I shook my head. I've been on the phone with the front desk, Noah said. When I checked in last night, I used the credit card tied to our joint account. The one Chase froze because of the wire transfer. The front desk called up here at 3 a.m. to tell me the authorization hold for the room had declined. They told me I needed to come down and provide a new form of payment, or I had to vacate the room. My heart broke right down the middle. Oh my god, I don't have a new form of payment, Noah continued, his voice perfectly, terrifyingly calm. My debit card is locked. My Amex is maxed out by my mother. I didn't have any cash because we just got back from Europe. I had to call Dave, my buddy from college, who lives in Wicker Park, wake him up at 4 in the morning, and ask him to Venmo the hotel manager directly, just so I wouldn't get thrown out onto Monroe Street. Noah, I have my cards. I can pay for it right now. That's exactly the point, he said, standing up. He started pacing the small strip of carpet between the bed and the window. You have your cards. You have your sister's penthouse. You have a father who buys houses in cash and hides them in corporate shells. You have safety nets stacked on top of safety nets. He stopped and looked at me, his eyes red and wet. I spent my entire adult life trying to build a life where I didn't owe my mother anything. I worked 80-hour weeks, so I wouldn't have to ask her for a dime, because I knew every dollar came with a leash, and I did it. I got free. And then I married you, and I woke up yesterday realizing I just traded one leash for another. That's not true, I pleaded, stepping toward him. I am not my father. I didn't know about the trust. I'm taking it back. It doesn't matter if you knew, Noah said, his voice cracking. It matters that it's how your family operates. Your dad looked at me, decided I was a financial risk because of my toxic mother, and engineered a failsafe to protect his investment. He doesn't respect me. He tolerates me. He's paranoid, Noah. He does this with everything. And my mother is crazy. She does this with everything. Noah fired back. Do you see the problem here? We don't have a marriage. We're just collateral damage in a proxy war between your dad's money and my mom's insanity. We're not building a life together. We're just surviving our parents. I didn't have a defense for that, because he was right. I stood in the middle of the hotel room, listening to the muffled sounds of traffic from the street below, feeling entirely helpless. Before I could say anything, Noah's laptop chimed from the desk. It was an email notification. He walked over and tapped the trackpad to wake the screen. He read the subject line, and the remaining color completely drained from his face. He actually reached out and gripped the edge of the desk to steady himself. What is it? I asked, moving to stand beside him. He didn't answer. He just pointed at the screen. It was an email from the managing director of Noah's consulting firm. The subject line read, Urgent, HR inquiry, your leave of absence. I leaned in and read the body of the email over his shoulder. Noah, I received a very concerning voicemail on my personal cell phone this morning from your mother, Nicole. She stated that you are currently undergoing a severe psychiatric crisis, that you have abandoned your home, and that you are in the middle of an aggressive legal separation from your wife. She requested that we suspend your corporate access and mandate psychiatric leave immediately for your own safety, claiming you are a flight risk with company data. As per company protocol regarding mental health crises and data security, IT has temporarily restricted your access to the server pending a meeting with HR. Please call me the moment you see this. We need to clear this up before the Monday morning partner briefing. Regards, Marcus. I stopped reading, the words blurring together. My chest felt so tight I couldn't draw a full breath. She hadn't just gone after his money. She hadn't just gone after his house. She was going after his career. She was burning his professional reputation to the ground, using the stigma of a mental health crisis to force his boss to lock him out of his own livelihood. She called Marcus, Noah whispered, staring blindly at the screen. She got his personal number off the emergency contact sheet I gave her 3 years ago. Noah, we can call him right now, I said quickly, panic making my hands shake. We can call him together. We'll tell him she's unstable, that it's a family dispute, that none of it is true. Noah slowly closed the laptop. The click of the screen shutting sounded incredibly loud in the quiet room. Do you know what happens to consultants who bring unstable family disputes to the managing director? He asked, his voice dead. They get quietly transitioned off the prime accounts. They get labeled a liability. Marcus doesn't care if it's true or not. He cares that my mother has his cell phone number and is threatening to make a scene. He turned away from the desk and walked over to the armchair. He picked up his jacket and slipped it on. Where are you going? I asked, a sudden, terrifying spike of adrenaline hitting my bloodstream. I'm going to the Chase branch on LaSalle, he said, picking up his room key. I'm going to lift the freeze on my debit card, and then I'm going to Maya's apartment. Maya's? Why? Richard isn't there anymore. I know, Noah said, opening the hotel room door. He didn't look back at me. But my mother is, and she wins. I'm done fighting her. I don't have the money or the energy left to keep running. The heavy wooden door clicked shut, and the deadbolt slid into place with a sickening finality. I stood in the middle of room 412, staring at the brass handle. He was walking to the bank. He was going to surrender to her because he thought he was completely out of options. Wait, the bank. Sarah from Chase's fraud division had been explicitly clear on the phone last night. You and Mr. Hayes will need to visit a physical branch with 2 forms of identification. Noah didn't have 2 forms of identification. His mother had stolen his passport and his physical social security card from our lockbox. He only had his driver's license. The bank system was going to flag him, ask for secondary verification, and deny him access to his own money. He was walking straight into another brick wall, and when he hit it, it was going to break whatever fight he had left. I grabbed my duffel bag off the armchair and bolted out the door. I sprinted down the carpeted hallway, hammering the elevator button until the doors slid open. As the car dropped toward the lobby, I pulled out my phone and dialed Chloe. She answered on the second ring, sounding wide awake and over-caffeinated. Are you at the hotel? She asked immediately. Did you find him? I found him, but he just left, I said, my voice breathless as I speed walked through the opulent Palmer House lobby, dodging bellhops and luggage carts. Chloe, Nicole called his managing director. She left a voicemail claiming Noah is having a psychiatric break and that he's a flight risk with company data. They suspended his server access. He thinks his career is over. Dead silence on the line for 3 seconds. When Chloe spoke again, the older sister tone was completely gone. She was in full corporate litigator mode, ice cold. Tortious interference with a business contract, Chloe said, the words clipping out sharply. Defamation per se, and severe breach of corporate protocol by his HR department for acting on an unverified tip from an unlisted third party. Who is the managing director? His name is Marcus, I said, pushing through the heavy revolving revolving doors and hitting the frigid morning air of Monroe Street. I don't know his last name. I'll find him on LinkedIn. Screenshot the email Noah got and send it to me right now. Chloe, what are you going to do? I'm going to have my firm's senior partner draft a cease and desist letter addressed directly to Marcus and his company's internal legal counsel, Chloe said flatly. I am going to inform them that if they do not instantly reinstate Noah's access, they will be named as co-defendants in a massive defamation and wrongful suspension lawsuit. They are a consulting firm. They hate liability more than they hate bad PR. I'll have his access restored before you finish your coffee. Where is Noah right now? He's walking to the Chase branch on LaSalle to try and lift the freeze on his debit card, but he doesn't have his passport or his social security card because Nicole stole them. The bank is going to turn him away. Get to that bank, Chloe ordered. Send me that screenshot. She hung up. I pulled up my text thread with Noah, realized I couldn't access his email from my phone, and cursed loudly. I couldn't send the screenshot yet. I had to get to him first. I ran the 3 blocks to LaSalle Street, my lungs burning in the cold air. The financial district was just waking up, suits pouring out of the train stations and funneling into the massive glass and steel high-rises. I spotted the blue Chase logo on the corner and pushed through the double glass doors. The branch was vast, echoing, and mostly empty at this hour. I scanned the room. Noah was sitting at a low, frosted glass desk in the back corner. Across from him sat a junior banker in a tight blue suit, looking deeply uncomfortable and typing rapidly on his keyboard. Noah's posture was completely collapsed. He had his elbows on the desk, his face buried in his hands. I walked over quickly and pulled up the empty chair next to him. Noah flinched and looked up. His eyes were completely hollow. I told you not to come, he whispered. I'm sorry, the banker said, looking between us with a strained, apologetic expression. Mr. Hayes, as I was just explaining, because of the hard freeze placed by the fraud division, and because the account was flagged for a suspicious wire transfer initiated using your social security number, I cannot override the lock with just a driver's license. The system requires a secondary, government-issued ID, a passport, or the physical social security card. I don't have them, Noah said, his voice completely devoid of emotion. They were stolen from my house yesterday. Then you need to file a police report for the stolen documents, the banker said gently. Once you have the official police report, you can bring that in, and we can initiate a provisional. The police told my dad it's a civil dispute because it was my mother, Noah interrupted, staring blankly at the desk. There is no police report, the banker grimaced. Then my hands are tied, sir. I cannot release the funds. Noah nodded slowly. He didn't argue, he didn't yell, he just accepted it. He reached out to pick up his useless driver's license. Okay, thank you for your time. He started to stand up. I reached across the desk and slammed my hand down over his, pinning his license to the glass. Noah looked at me, startled. I'm the joint account holder, I said, looking directly at the banker. I unzipped the front pocket of my duffel bag and pulled out my driver's license and my passport, sliding them across the desk. My name is on the account. I was the one who called the fraud division last night and authorized the freeze. Here is my primary ID, and here is my passport. The banker blinked, taken aback by the sudden shift in energy. He picked up my IDs and looked at his screen. Yes, ma'am, I see that here. You initiated the verbal freeze at 9:14 p.m. Great. I am sitting in front of you with 2 forms of ID. I want to lift the freeze on my half of the joint assets. I can do that for you, the banker said cautiously. But Mr. Hayes' debit card will remain locked until he provides secondary identification. The system separates the users even on a joint ledger. I don't care about his debit card right now, I said. I want you to open a new checking account, right now, in my name only. I want you to transfer all the funds from the joint account into that new account. And I want you to issue me a temporary debit card and withdraw $2,000 in cash. The banker's fingers hovered over his keyboard. You want to drain the joint account and close it? Yes. I can do that, the banker stammered, clearly intimidated. Please give me just a moment. He started typing furiously. Noah just sat there, staring at me. His hand was still resting on the desk under mine. I turned my hand over and laced my fingers through his. His skin was freezing cold. Open your laptop, I whispered to him. What? Open your laptop and pull up that email from Marcus. I need a picture of it. Why? He asked, his voice cracking. It's over. She got to him. Just open the laptop, Noah. He sighed, reaching into his duffel bag with his free hand. He pulled out the silver laptop, set it on the glass desk, and flipped it open. The screen woke up, still displaying the HR email. I took my phone out, snapped a clear photo of the screen, and immediately texted it to Chloe. Sent. Fix it, I typed. 3 dots appeared instantly on Chloe's end. Already drafting. Give me 30 minutes. I turned back to Noah. My sister is a corporate litigator. Her firm handles liability for Fortune 500 companies. She is sending a cease and desist to Marcus and his legal team as we speak. They broke HR protocol by acting on a medical claim from an unverified third party. If they don't reinstate your server access by 9 o'clock, Chloe is going to threaten them with a wrongful suspension lawsuit that will make Marcus's head spin. Noah stared at me, his eyes widening slightly. You called Chloe? Yes. Because having a lawyer in the family shouldn't just be something my dad uses to protect his real estate, I said, keeping my voice low but intensely firm. It should be something we use to protect you. The banker cleared his throat. Ma'am, the new account is open. The funds have been transferred. Here is your temporary debit card, and here is the cash. He slid a thick white envelope across the desk, followed by a plastic card. I picked up the envelope and handed it directly to Noah. You're not broke, I said, and you're not trapped. You have cash. You have me, and we are going to get your documents back. Noah looked down at the envelope in his hands. His chest rose and fell in a deep, shuddering breath. For the first time since we walked into our kitchen yesterday afternoon, the look of absolute, hollow defeat in his eyes flickered. A tiny spark of the man I married fought its way back to the surface. She has my birth certificate, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She's at Maya's. I know, I said. Are you ready to go get it? He closed his laptop, shoved it back into his bag, and stood up. He didn't look exhausted anymore. He looked furious. Yeah, he said. Let's go. We walked out of the bank and immediately hailed a yellow cab. Noah gave the driver Maya's address in Logan Square. As the cab merged into the heavy morning traffic on the Kennedy Expressway, the silence in the backseat was thick, but it was a different kind of silence than the one in the hotel room. It wasn't the silence of giving up. It was the silence of bracing for impact. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Maya. I answered it and put it on speaker, holding it between us so Noah could hear. Maya, are you guys coming here? Maya asked. She wasn't crying anymore. Her voice was flat, tight, and incredibly stressed. She sounded like she hadn't slept either. We're in a cab on the highway, Noah said, leaning closer to the phone. We're 10 minutes away. Is she still there? She's sitting at my kitchen table, Maya said softly, her voice muffled, like she was hiding in her bathroom or a closet. Noah, Dad was here an hour ago. He came to confront her about the Amex card. Did he get my documents back? Noah asked sharply. No, Maya whispered. It was awful. Dad started yelling at her, demanding she hand over your passport and the social security card. Mom just sat there drinking coffee. She told Dad that if he touched her bags or tried to search my apartment, she would call the police and tell them her physically abusive ex-husband broke in and threatened her life. Noah squeezed his eyes shut and pinched the bridge of his nose. God damn it. Dad knew she'd do it, Maya continued, her voice trembling slightly. He knows how she plays this. He told her he was going to dispute the charge as fraud and that the credit card company would press charges against her, but he left. He couldn't physically take the stuff without risking an assault charge. She backed him into a corner. Where are the documents right now? I asked. That's why I'm calling, Maya said. I heard the sound of a door clicking shut on her end. She was definitely hiding. After Dad left, she took your birth certificate, your social security card, and the unexecuted trust document she stole from your house. She put them in a neat little pile on the kitchen table. Why? Noah asked, a sick edge of dread creeping into his voice. Because she plugged my paper shredder in, Maya whispered. She pulled it out of my home office and set it right next to the table. She told me to call you. She said to tell you that if you don't walk through my front door by noon, alone, and agree to come stay here with her, she is going to shred everything. The birth certificate, the social, the passports, all of it. My stomach turned completely over. It was a hostage situation. She wasn't holding a person. She was holding his identity. She wouldn't, Noah said, though he didn't sound convinced. She knows how hard it is to replace those. She needs them to control me. Noah, she's unhinged today, Maya pleaded. Dad terrified her this morning. She realized she might actually face legal trouble for the credit card, and she is panicking. When she panics, she burns everything down so no one else can have it. She told me to tell you noon. Exactly noon. Please just hurry. Maya hung up. I looked at the clock on the dashboard of the cab. It was 8:45 a.m. We had a little over 3 hours. She's bluffing, Noah said, staring out the window at the passing cars. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping in his cheek. She won't destroy the only leverage she has left. Noah, she maxed out a credit card under your name and tried to wire $18,000 out of our account, I pointed out gently. She is entirely capable of feeding a piece of paper into a machine just to punish you for ignoring her. He didn't answer. He just kept staring out the window. The cab pulled off the highway and wove through the residential streets of Logan Square. Maya lived in a split-level brick duplex on a quiet, tree-lined street. It was the kind of neighborhood where people knew their neighbors and noticed when things were out of place. Right now, what was out of place was Nicole's silver Lexus SUV, parked illegally across a fire hydrant directly in front of the building. The cab stopped. Noah paid the driver with a $50 bill from the envelope I'd given him and didn't wait for change. He pushed the door open and hit the pavement walking fast. I scrambled out after him. We walked up the concrete steps to the front door. Maya's unit was on the second floor. Noah didn't bother buzzing. He pulled out his own set of keys. He had a spare for Maya's place and unlocked the heavy glass outer door. We climbed the carpeted stairs in silence. When we reached Maya's landing, Noah didn't hesitate. He jammed the key into the deadbolt, turned it, and pushed the door open. The smell of heavy floral perfume hit us instantly. Maya's apartment was usually messy, filled with textbooks, clothes, and empty coffee cups, but the living room was unnervingly pristine. Nicole had apparently spent the morning rage cleaning. The cushions on the couch were perfectly aligned. The magazines on the coffee table were fanned out at exact angles. And sitting at the small wooden dining table in the corner, with a cup of tea in her hand, was Nicole. She looked up as we walked in. She was wearing a crisp white blouse and dark slacks, her hair perfectly styled. She didn't look like a woman who had broken into a house yesterday or maxed out a stolen credit card. She looked like she was waiting for a PTA meeting to start. To her right, exactly as Maya had described, sat a black, heavy-duty paper shredder. Its green power light was glowing steadily. And on the table, resting directly next to the feed slot, was a small stack of thick, official-looking papers. I could clearly see the blue border of Noah's birth certificate and the dark green cover of my passport. Nicole's eyes flicked from Noah to me, and her polite, serene expression instantly curdled into a scowl. I told Maya to tell you to come alone, Nicole said, carefully setting her teacup down on a saucer. This is family business, Noah. She has no right to be here. She's my wife, Noah said. His voice was dangerously calm. He stepped into the living room, putting himself between me and the table. And you have exactly 10 seconds to take your hands off my documents, or I'm dragging you out of this apartment by your collar. Nicole laughed. It was a sharp, grating sound. You're not going to touch me, Noah. You're too worried about making a scene. You always have been. She reached out and rested her index finger lightly on top of his birth certificate. I had a very unpleasant conversation with your father this morning, she said, her tone suddenly shifting to a wounded, venomous purr. He came in here screaming at me, threatening me. After everything I endured in Italy, I come home to find my ex-husband trying to intimidate me, and my own son hiding in a hotel room with his little trust fund wife. You stole my identity, Mom. I secured it, Nicole snapped, slamming her palm flat against the papers. The sudden noise made me jump. I secured it because you are clearly not in your right mind. You let her family manipulate you. You let her father put your own home in a shell corporation so you'd be homeless if she ever got bored of you. I am the only person trying to protect you. You called Marcus, Noah said. He didn't yell. The utter lack of volume in his voice was somehow much more intimidating than if he had screamed. You called my managing director and told him I was having a psychiatric break. Nicole's expression didn't change, but her chin tilted up slightly in defiance. I told him you needed time off. You're not thinking clearly. A few weeks of mandated leave will give you time to clear your head, come stay here with me, and realize what a massive mistake you've made. You tried to get me fired. I tried to save you from yourself. Give me the papers, Noah demanded, taking a heavy step toward the table. Nicole instantly grabbed the stack of documents and held them directly over the thin, silver slot of the paper shredder. Noah froze. Do not take another step, Nicole hissed, her eyes wide and manic. I will push them in. I will shred the birth certificate, the social, the passports, all of it. Have fun trying to board a plane or open a new bank account or prove who you are when you have absolutely nothing left. Noah stood perfectly still in the center of the living room. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by the low, electrical hum of the shredder, waiting for paper. Mom, Noah said, his voice dropping into a desperate, exhausted plea. Please, just put them down. Sit down on the couch, Noah, she ordered, keeping the papers hovering over the slot. We We are going to have a calm, civilized conversation about how we are going to fix this marriage. And she, Nicole pointed a trembling finger at me, is going to leave. Before I could respond, the front door of the apartment, which we hadn't closed all the way, was pushed wide open. Maya stood in the doorway. She was holding her phone in her hand, and she looked absolutely terrified. But she wasn't looking at Nicole. She was looking at me. Maya, what is it? Noah asked without taking his eyes off his mother. I didn't know what else to do, Maya stammered, stepping into the room. She pointed her phone awkwardly toward the dining table. I called him. When she plugged the shredder in, I panicked and I called him. Called who? I asked. Heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed on the carpeted stairs out in the hallway. A moment later, a man stepped into the doorway, filling the frame. He was wearing a sharply tailored, charcoal gray suit, a dark overcoat, and an expression of utter, absolute disdain. It was my father. He walked into the apartment, completely ignoring Noah, ignoring Maya, and ignoring the papers hovering over the shredder. He stopped a few feet away from the dining table and looked down at Nicole like he was inspecting a cockroach on his shoe. Nicole, my father said, his voice a smooth, resonant baritone that commanded the entire room. I understand you've been looking for me. Nicole's hand actually trembled. For a split second, the sheer presence of my father in the room threw her completely off balance. She was used to terrorizing people who cared about social decorum. She was used to bullying Richard, who hated conflict, and manipulating Noah, who had been conditioned to appease her. My father didn't care about decorum, and he certainly didn't appease anyone. Arthur, Nicole managed to say, recovering her icy facade. She pressed the stack of documents closer to the silver slot of the shredder. You have no business being here. This is a private residence. It's a rental unit owned by a management company that I happen to play golf with. But let's not split hairs, my father said smoothly. He didn't even look at the shredder. He unbuttoned his overcoat and slipped his hands into his trouser pockets. I received your message this morning, the one where you threatened to go to the press with fabricated allegations about my firm's tax structures, unless I liquidated an LLC and handed the assets over to your son. They aren't fabricated, Nicole snapped. I saw the trust documents. You are deliberately hiding marital assets to defraud Noah. What you saw was a standard corporate restructuring draft that had absolutely nothing to do with you, my father corrected, his voice dropping slightly in temperature. But what you did, Nicole, was leave a voicemail on my private line explicitly demanding financial compensation in exchange for your silence. In the state of Illinois, that is a Class 2 felony. It's called extortion, Nicole scoffed, but the sound was thin. I'm not afraid of your lawyers, Arthur. I'm a mother protecting her son. Any judge will see that. You won't see a judge, my father said pleasantly. You will see a team of litigators who bill out at $1,200 an hour. Chloe spent the morning drafting a comprehensive civil suit against you. Defamation, tortious interference, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and extortion. We are prepared to freeze your bank accounts by Tuesday, put a lien on your condo in Evanston, and garnish whatever meager pension you're currently living on until the day you die. He took a single step closer to the table. The green power light on the shredder illuminated the edge of his polished leather shoe. Now, he said, his eyes locking onto hers, you are going to take your hand off my son-in-law's documents. You are going to pack your bags. And you are going to sign the non-disclosure agreement my associate is currently printing in his car downstairs. If you do that, I will delete your voicemail and pretend this incredibly pathetic display never happened. Nicole stared at him. Her breathing was shallow and fast. She looked at the shredder, then at Noah, and then back at my father. She was doing the math. She was calculating whether she could actually win a war of attrition against a man who bought city blocks for fun. She couldn't, and she knew it. Slowly, agonizingly, her fingers uncurled. She slid the stack of documents away from the shredder and pushed them across the smooth wood of Maya's dining table. Noah immediately stepped forward to grab them, but my father was faster. He reached out, his large hand sweeping the passports, the birth certificate, and the social security card off the table. He didn't hand them to Noah. He tapped them against his palm to straighten the edges, then calmly slid the entire stack into the inner breast pocket of his tailored suit jacket. Noah stopped dead in his tracks. What are you doing? Securing the assets, my father said without looking at him. He turned his attention back to Nicole, who was now shrinking into her chair, looking entirely defeated. Your bags, Nicole, now. Dad, I said, stepping forward. My voice felt incredibly loud in the quiet room. Give Noah his documents. My father finally turned to look at us. He offered a tight paternal smile that didn't reach his eyes. Not right now. We have a lot of moving pieces to handle today, and I am not taking any chances with careless handling. Noah, I've already spoken to Marcus at your firm. Chloe put the fear of God into their legal department. Your server access was reinstated 10 minutes ago. They expect you on Monday, no questions asked. Give me my birth certificate, Arthur, Noah said. His voice was dangerously low. It wasn't the exhausted tone from the hotel room. It was the sound of a man who had reached the absolute end of his rope. We will discuss it at my office, my father said dismissively, checking his heavy silver wristwatch. I have a car waiting downstairs. The two of you are going to go back to the house, pack a bag, and stay at the peninsula for the weekend. I've booked you a suite. The optics of you two staying in a hotel while this blows over are better. We can't have Nicole showing up on the property again and causing a scene for the neighbors. He was managing us. He had walked in, crushed Nicole, and instantly stepped right into the exact same power vacuum she had just vacated. He wasn't giving Noah his identity back. He was confiscating it for safekeeping, because my father didn't believe anyone was capable of handling their own lives properly except him. I'm not going to the peninsula, Noah said, and I'm not going to your office. Hand me my passport. My father sighed, the heavy, irritated sound of a parent dealing with a stubborn toddler. Noah, this is exactly the kind of emotional volatility that created this mess in the first place. You are compromised. Your mother has spent the last 48 hours systematically dismantling your life, and I just stepped in and fixed it. You should be thanking me, not making demands. Fixed it? Noah let out a harsh, bitter laugh. He pointed a shaking finger at Nicole, who was quietly crying at the table. She stole my identity, and your solution was to walk in here and take it from her so you could hold on to it yourself. You didn't fix anything. You just changed the name on the leash. Noah, I pleaded, reaching out to touch his arm. He's just trying to help. Noah yanked his arm away from me. The movement was sharp, almost violent, and it made me stumble back a half step. He looked at me, and the betrayal in his eyes was absolute. You called him, he said. I didn't call him, I said quickly, my heart hammering in my chest. I called Chloe. I just asked Chloe to help with the HR issue. Maya called him because she was scared. But you brought me here, Noah said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You came to the bank. You gave me the cash. cash. You convinced me to come here, knowing your sister was coordinating with your dad. You knew he was coming. I didn't. Noah, I swear to God I didn't know he was coming here. It doesn't matter, Noah said, stepping back from me. He looked between me and my father, shaking his head slowly. You guys are a machine. You just absorb everything. My mother tries to ruin my life, and your family uses it as an excuse to completely take over. He turned to my father. Keep the passport. Keep the birth certificate. I'll order new ones. But you are not managing my life. And you are sure as hell not putting me in a hotel so you can control the optics. Noah turned and walked toward the door. Noah! I yelled, running after him. I grabbed the sleeve of his jacket right as he reached the hallway. Please, don't do this. He's an asshole, but he's not Nicole. We can fix this. I'll get the papers from him right now. Noah stopped and looked down at my hand gripping his jacket. He didn't pull away this time, but he didn't lean in either. He just looked incredibly, profoundly tired. Look at what's happening, he said quietly, gesturing back into the apartment. I looked. My father was standing over Nicole, dictating terms to her while Maya watched, terrified, from the corner. My father looked completely in his element. He was negotiating a hostile takeover, and I was standing in the doorway, begging my husband to stay in a marriage that had become a corporate merger. We spent 2 weeks in Switzerland pretending we had escaped, Noah said softly. But we didn't. We just bought ourselves a grace period. This is what our life is going to be. Every time we hit a bump, your dad is going to buy our way out of it, and my mom is going to try to burn it down. There is no us. It's just them. That's not true, I said, tears finally spilling over my eyelashes and running down my cheeks. I chose you. I ripped up that document. I want to be with you. I love you, Noah said, his voice cracking. He reached up and gently wiped a tear off my cheek with his thumb. It was the softest touch I had felt in days, and it broke my heart completely. But I can't survive your family, and I won't let you drown in mine. He let his hand drop. He turned around and walked down the carpeted stairs. I didn't follow him. I stood frozen on the landing, listening to the heavy glass door of the building open and close. I walked back into the apartment. My father was holding out a thick black Mont Blanc pen to Nicole. Sign it, he commanded, and then pack your bags. The car is outside. Nicole, her face blotchy and mascara running down her cheeks, took the pen with shaking hands. She didn't read the non-disclosure agreement. She just signed her name on the bottom line. Defeated, broken, and completely neutralized. My father took the pen back, picked up the NDA, and slipped it into his briefcase. He looked around the room, brushing an invisible speck of dust off his lapel. Well, he said, turning to me with a tight, satisfied smile. That's handled. Where did Noah go? We need to get you two to the peninsula before traffic gets bad. I stared at him. I looked at the breast pocket of his suit where my husband's entire legal identity was currently sitting, held hostage for safekeeping. I looked at Nicole, who was silently weeping at the table, clutching her designer handbag like it was a life preserver. They had ruined it. They had actually, thoroughly ruined it. Give me his papers, I said. My voice didn't shake. It was completely dead. My father frowned. We'll discuss it in the car. You're entirely too emotional right now. Give me his papers, Dad, right now. I am not handing sensitive documents to a man who just stormed out of an apartment like a teenager. My father snapped, his patience finally wearing thin. He is compromised. He needs a cooling off period. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just walked past him, went straight into Maya's kitchen, and opened the drawer next to the sink. Maya had lived here for 2 years. I knew exactly where she kept her things. I pulled out a heavy, cast iron meat mallet. Maya gasped. My father took a sudden step back, his eyes widening in shock. I walked back into the living room, holding the mallet down at my side. I didn't look at Nicole. I didn't look at Maya. I walked directly up to my father. You have 10 seconds to take those documents out of your pocket and hand them to me, I said, staring directly into his eyes. Or, I am going to walk over to your waiting car downstairs, and I am going to smash every single window in it. And then I'm going to call the Chicago Tribune myself, and I am going to tell them exactly what you did with the LLC. I will blow your waterfront zoning permits straight to hell. My father stared at me. For the first time in my entire life, I saw genuine hesitation in his face. He wasn't looking at his daughter. He was looking at a liability he couldn't control. You wouldn't, he said quietly. I raised the mallet an inch. 8 seconds. He held my gaze for 3 more seconds, testing my resolve. He saw that there wasn't a bluff to call. The polite, compliant daughter who let him handle the down payment paperwork was gone. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his breast pocket. He pulled out the blue passport, the green passport, the birth certificate, and the social security card. He handed them to me. You are making a massive mistake, my father said coldly. Get out of my sight, I told him. He adjusted his tie, gave me one last look of absolute disgust, and walked out the door. I didn't wait to see what Nicole would do. I shoved the documents into my duffel bag, dropped the mallet on the carpet, and ran out of the apartment. I hit the street sprinting. I looked left, then right. The silver Lexus was still parked illegally. My father's black town car was idling near the corner, but there was no sign of Noah. I pulled my phone out with shaking hands and checked the Find My app again. Still turned off. I called his number. It went straight to voicemail. He was gone. He had his cash, his phone, and a head start. I stood on the sidewalk in Logan Square, the cold wind whipping my hair across my face, holding the documents that proved who my husband was, but having absolutely no idea where he was going. The extortion was over. The bank freeze was lifted. The HR crisis was solved, but the marriage was empty. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down, expecting a text from Chloe or my dad. It was a notification from the Chase banking app, the new individual account I had opened just an hour ago with the transferred funds. Alert. Withdrawal of $15,000 at O'Hare International Airport, Terminal 5. Terminal 5. International departures. He hadn't just walked away from my father. He was leaving the country. I flagged down a battered yellow cab that was just dropping off a passenger on the corner of Milwaukee Avenue. I practically threw myself into the back seat, shouting the terminal number at the driver before the door was even closed. The ride up the Kennedy Expressway took 45 minutes, but it felt like 5 years. I sat in the back, my hands gripping the canvas straps of my duffel bag so hard my knuckles ached. Inside the front pocket were the 4 pieces of heavy paper that dictated whether my husband had a future and whether I was going to be a part of it. Terminal 5 is a cavernous, sweeping expanse of glass and steel. It's loud, it's chaotic, and it's designed to make you feel small. I pushed through the revolving doors and stopped, letting the rush of travelers with heavy luggage carts flow around me. I scanned the ticketing rows: British Airways, Air France, KLM, and then I saw him. He was sitting on a metal bench near the far wall, right next to the Swiss Air check-in counters. He wasn't in line. He wasn't looking at the departure boards. He was just sitting there, his elbows resting on his knees, staring at the polished, terrazzo floor. His canvas duffel bag was resting against his leg. I walked over to him. My footsteps felt incredibly heavy. I stopped a few feet away. Noah looked up. He didn't look surprised. He looked at my face, then down at my hands, then back up to my eyes. "You knew I'd get the alert," I said. My voice was shaky, but the acoustics of the terminal swallowed it up. "I knew the app sends push notifications for any withdrawal over 5,000, he said quietly. He leaned back against the metal bench. "I didn't know who was going to walk through those doors, though. I didn't know if it would be you or if your dad was going to send someone with a badge to drag me back to his office. My dad is never making another decision for us as long as he lives," I said. I unzipped the front pocket of my bag, pulled out the thick stack of documents, and held them out. Noah stood up. He didn't take them right away. He just looked at the blue edge of his passport and the green edge of mine. "How did you get them?" he asked. "I picked up a cast iron meat mallet from your sister's kitchen counter and told him I'd smash his town car to pieces and leak his shell companies to the Tribune if he didn't hand them over," I said, entirely deadpan. Noah stared at me. For a second, he looked completely horrified. And then, slowly, a crack appeared in the exhausted, hollow mask he'd been wearing for 2 days. The corner of his mouth twitched. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh, running a hand through his messy hair. "You threatened Arthur with a meat mallet?" I gave him 10 seconds, I confirmed. He folded at 8. Noah reached out and finally took the documents. He looked down at them, tracing his thumb over the gold foil eagle on the cover of his passport. Then he reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a thick, white bank envelope. "I didn't buy a ticket," he said. "I went to the currency exchange desk. I pulled the 15,000 out in a cashier's check." He handed me the envelope. I looked inside. It was made out to both of us. "I called Marcus from the cab ride over here," Noah continued, his voice steadying, gaining traction. "I told him I appreciated him reinstating my access, but that I can't stay in Chicago. I told him I wanted the open transfer to the Seattle office. They've been trying to fill a senior consultant role there for 6 months. He said if I can be at a desk by Wednesday, the job is mine." I looked up from the envelope. Seattle, 2,000 miles away from my father's real estate empire, 2,000 miles away from his mother's apartment. "What about your mom?" I asked softly. "Richard called me while I was standing in line for the check," Noah said. There was no pity left in his voice, just a cold, clean finality. "He filed the police report for the Amex fraud. He's pressing charges. My mother is going to spend the next 5 years fighting debt collectors and a criminal summons. She doesn't have the money to follow us, and she doesn't have the leverage to force me back. I'm done. I am completely, permanently done." He took a step closer to me. The space between us finally closed. "The house is gone," Noah said, looking deeply into my eyes, needing to make sure I understood exactly what this meant. "The down payment is gone. The safety net is gone. Your dad is going to cut you out of the trust, and my mom is going to play the victim for the rest of her life. If we walk up to that counter and buy 2 one-way tickets to Seattle right now, this $15,000 is literally everything we have in the world." He reached out and gently touched my arm, his thumb tracing the fabric of my coat. "Are you sure you want to be with me?" he asked, "with just me?" I looked at the man I married. I thought about the heavy, suffocating silence of that perfectly decorated, LLC-owned house. I thought about the velvet box with the luggage tags at the rehearsal dinner. I thought about the 3 years of background noise, the subtle manipulations, the invisible strings attached to every single dollar, and every single favor we had ever received. I looked at the Swiss air counter. A flight to Seattle was boarding from Terminal 3 inches 2 hours. "Noah," I said, reaching up and resting my hand flat against his chest, feeling the steady, solid beat of his heart. "I have never been more sure of anything in my entire life." Noah smiled. It was the exact same smile I'd seen in Switzerland when he threw his SIM card into the trash. Light, free, untethered. He picked up his duffel bag, shifted it over his shoulder, and took my hand. His fingers laced tightly through mine, and for the first time since we walked down the aisle, the grip didn't feel like a trap. It felt like an anchor. We turned away from the International Departures Board and started walking toward the domestic terminal, leaving our families, our inheritances, and our ghosts behind us in the glass and steel of O'Hare. The honeymoon was finally over. The marriage was just beginning.